Hi everybody, we are making molds today for fetal losses. First we are going to gather our supplies. So everything is in the RTS workroom. We are just in here for demonstration purposes. So you're going to need probably some bath blankets or towels, depending on the size of your baby. We'll talk about that in a second. Then all of the other things should be in the workroom. You're going to need the Alginate powder, which is in here. You're going to need the Hydrocal plaster. And then you're going to need the other things that are in there that you can see here, like different kinds of mold containers, mixers, and measuring cups, and probably some disposable cups that you can throw away. Okay, so the different kind of molds that you need to think about are, if you're going to do an impression mold like this, where basically you're just putting the bottom of the foot or the hand down into the mold surface. When you're making the actual mold itself. Or if you're going to be doing more of a 3D mold that is like this, or even this one where you're only going to fill this portion. It really is dependent on your gestation. For me, I feel like the smaller babies do better with the impressions because they're not as fine in the details. And if you do the foot, you can even make it kind of a deep impression there. Or a face. Faces usually, I think, do better as a profile. This is just a doll face and it's got a little creep factor to it. The other two things you want to think about are, if you're doing a mold like this, I don't know if you can see that, but if you can see the pinky here, it didn't get filled all the way, and we're going to talk about that when we talk about the filling, about how to avoid that situation. And then sometimes this just kind of shows that with some of the molds, even with especially smaller babies, then you can kind of lose fingers, so you just have to be careful with that also. Okay, this part we're going to be talking about what containers you use for what purpose. So the different ones that we talked about as far as the impression versus the 3D, having a rim around it or not, you have to just kind of think in your head what you want to take. If you're going to do just, oops, sorry little hand. If you're going to do something where you're just going to fill the part, then you'll probably do it in a cup, whatever size is going to work, and then you'll fill the plaster only up to that part. If you need to do something with a rim around it, which is going to be more of the impression, or something like this where you're kind of getting just mostly the bottom, or you can do a full thickness where you leave a rim around it. You just have to think about that in your container, because you have to leave enough space at the top for that plaster to fill, to leave that rim around the top. Okay, let's talk about what the materials are that we are using. So there's two things that we use. The first thing that you're going to use is the Alginate powder, and it comes in a bag that's already kind of kept in this container. The purpose of the Alginate, it's what you're actually going to put their hands or feet or face in. It's the same kind of stuff that you used when you went to the dentist and they put that gross stuff in your mouth to make a mold of your teeth. The second part is the Hydrocal. It's actually the plaster. We used to use plaster of Paris, but this is a stronger plaster version. And this is what you're going to mix up to pour into the mold after you remove the hand, foot, or face. Okay, you want to think about how you're going to position your baby for whatever mold you're going to take. So on the pile of blankets or bath blankets, whatever, or towels, then if you're going to do feet, it really works well to just kind of move them to the end. Make it at a height so that you can easily put the part into the mold. If you're going to do their hand, then you can hang their arm if you can. Sometimes it makes it a little difficult off the side. And if you have two people, it's really nice if you can actually do both of these at the same time, and one person do a hand and the other person do the feet, and you can just mix them up and get it done all at once. If you're going to do a face, you can do the same thing. Flip the baby over, kind of have their face hanging off the side, and then this does get a little bit difficult sometimes, where you would then kind of give them that profile and gently into the Alginate. And if you want to, you can put a little bit of Vaseline on the foot or hand, or possibly even the face, just to help it release from the Alginate at the end. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and talk about mixing the Alginate. So once you've decided what container you're going to put this in, right now for this purpose we're just gonna use this. Here's a little measuring hack. So it's hard to know how much powder that you're going to need. So if you take your container and you decide first whether you're going to be just filling the hole that is left from the part, or whether you're going to leave a rim around it, and then kind of just fill it up with water to the level that you feel like you're going to need to put the alginate in, and there's kind of about how much you're going to need. This isn't precise, this is not baking precise, so don't freak out about that part. So we'll just kind of put that in there for a second. Then we're gonna measure out our alginate. We're gonna say we need a little bit less than a third. Make sure you read through the instructions that are in the RTS workroom, just that'll kind of refresh you if you have any other questions. But you're gonna have this video, so it's gonna be even better. So we're gonna put our powder in there first, in the cup, and it'll make a huge mess. And then we'll put our water in there, but you're gonna need more water than probably what this is. You're gonna be going for brownie batter. So we're gonna mix that up and just have a little bit more water ready. So if you can kind of see how thick that is too thick. That is too thick. So don't worry too much about how the measurement is. But that little measuring hack just kind of gives you a rough estimate of about how much powder you will need. So you can kind of see here, it turned pink, number one. See how lumpy it is? That is okay. Try to just get it as, like there's usually powder kind of stuck at the bottom of the cup, but just try to get it as smooth as you can, but lumps are okay. Then, once you get it pretty good, you have about 3 minutes to mix this, so don't like stress yourself that you're going too slow. It will start to turn less pink. This will be set when it's white. Okay, so here we have this. We're just gonna give it a few taps to try to get some of those air bubbles out. There's a stubborn one right there, so you can just pop it. And you can kind of see that it's kind of starting to turn white. So we have the alginate that we already mixed, so kind of put whatever level to get the baby's foot down to the level that you want to be able to put into the mold. And then you're just gonna kind of dip it in there. I like to put it all the way to the bottom and then lift it up a little bit, just so you know that you're not touching the bottom or the side of the container. That's really important. And so then we just kind of wait, and this will turn pretty white. There might be a few little pink specks in it, but then all you're gonna do is you're gonna touch the surface of the mold material, and if it doesn't stick to your finger and it feels like a hard-boiled egg, then you're gonna know that it's pretty much done, and you'll pull the part out. All right, so you kind of see how this is not sticking to my finger and it's hard. And so then you're just gonna kind of wiggle the part around and gently pull it out. And of course this container is much too small to actually do this foot. It's just for demonstration purposes only. Also note that there is really not much of a rim left here. So that is something that you would want to kind of keep in mind, because it will leave a little bit of one, but not a very deep one. You'd want to fill it a little less full if you had a bigger part. Okay, we're going to move on to the plaster. So when you have all your molds done, you can fill them all at the same time if you want to, or you can do them individually. One other hack, kind of like measuring to know how much alginate you're going to need, you can take your mold, this isn't going to hurt anything, and fill it up kind of to the brim if you're going to put a rim around it, or just the up to the part if you're just going to have just the part filled, and put that water and kind of measure how much that's going to be, and then dump that in your container. Kind of turn this upside down, kind of make sure you have all the water out of that. And then you're going to move on to your plaster. This uses a dry lake bed method. It's some sort of plastery term, but you're basically going to put enough plaster in here, and you're going to let it sit and not touch it until it looks like a dry lake bed. So we've kind of seen how much water is in there, and you need twice as much powder as you do water, but you're just going to kind of sprinkle it in. So I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it in. I'll show you this in a second. So you can kind of see it will start to dissolve, really, or absorb. And we'll spread that around a little bit. And nothing will happen with this until you actually physically stir it. So this could sit for quite a while and let it just absorb. So as you can see, there is the cracking, and it just kind of looks dry on the top. So once you achieve that, then that's when you're kind of done and you can stir it and then fill your mold. So once you get the dry lake bed, then you're just going to mix it up. And this is where you do want to get all of the lumps out as much as you can. And it should be kind of like pancake batter. All right, so when you're ready to fill your part, the first thing you want to do is just kind of drip some of the plaster in there, kind of dip it around. You can even kind of pour a little bit more back out, but you just want to make sure that it's in all of the little cracks and crevices of the toes or the fingers before you fill the rest of the mold. So give it a couple pats and then fill the rest to the top. I'm gonna put a rim on this one. So then you just continue to fill it until it is all the way to the level where you want it, and then give it a couple more good pats to make it nice and smooth on the top and set it aside to dry. After about 1 hour, you really don't want to wait more than 1 to 2 hours maybe, will be when you need to unmold your plaster. So if you wait too long, then the plaster will start to reabsorb moisture from the alginate and it could kind of affect the quality of your mold. Another tip is do not ever put any of these products down the sink. Try to use cups or things that you can just throw away whenever possible. You'll just peel the alginate off of whatever is reusable. And then if you mix the plaster in anything, then just use a wet paper towel and then baby wipes and it'll come pretty clean. Okay, now we're going to unmold and get our final product. So it's been an hour-ish. The nice thing with the silicone ones is that you can just kind of fold it down, remove that. And then you can use this, but you just have to be really careful with that, or you can use just one of these. Kind of visualize where the part is inside there, and I know this one has a larger larger foot than what really should have gone in here. So you can do some scoring along the edge, and then it's just like hard-boiled eggs. So you just kind of peel that off. If you're doing smaller parts, just make sure that once you get up to kind of where those toes or fingers are, that you're just being more careful. Honestly, I think the scalpel works better. And you can just take off little pieces when you kind of get to those parts. You just have to be careful. And so then we're just going to peel that away. And there is the finished project. Okay. All right, so you can kind of see here where there's some little defects on the mold itself. So you just use your blade to kind of make sure you get all of the product off. And then if you see these things that you'll either have pits or bubbles, you can just kind of push those off and usually kind of flick them off a little bit. Again, be careful if you're using a blade. That one's a pretty big one, but it did just kind of lift right off. So you can do that. You can also use a little bit of sandpaper, and if you have just some rough spots, you can sand them, but you just want to be careful that you don't sand too many of the little details of the little lines in the hands or feet.